Welcome to Palace Insider. Today's spotlight: Prince William, candid, charming, and unexpectedly real. His sit-down on Good Morning Britain revealed not just the soul of a future king, but the weight of a crown that already feels heavy. He came for coffee, but left the nation questioning the meaning of modern monarchy. That's how co-host Susanna Reid kicked off the February 19th special of Good Morning Britain, where the air buzzed with rare royal excitement. Not because of scandal or sorrow, no palace drama or leaked memo this time, but because Prince William, the next king of the United Kingdom and a growing symbol of British diplomacy, agreed to something shockingly raw and unfiltered on national TV. "It's been a busy few months, hasn't it, William?" Susanna began, sitting across from the prince on the show's signature Navy set. Beside her, none other than Sir David Attenborough, the legendary naturalist and one of William's personal heroes. "I thought I was just here to talk camels and falcons," William joked, flashing that familiar grin as the crowd laughed. "But if we're tackling foreign policy over pastries, I'm game." The laughter set the tone, light but real. Yet what followed wasn't small talk. For the next 40 minutes, viewers watched a rare side of the prince, stripped of the palace polish, aware of his power, and determined to use it for something real in a divided world. Fresh off a 3-day state visit to Saudi Arabia, Prince William had just returned as King Charles III's personal representative, and the stories he brought back turned heads fast. His mission? Strengthen diplomatic ties, push Britain's green innovation, and gently encourage the kingdom's social reforms, all without breaking royal protocol. But what really drew people in wasn't the politics. It was his calm, humble tone that carried weight. "There's a moment when you're standing beside a Saudi prince," William said, "talking about women's football, clean energy, and royal architecture, while a falcon stares at you like you're dinner." The studio erupted in laughter. "That's real diplomacy, isn't it?" he added with a smirk. Beneath the humor, his point hit hard. "Diplomacy today is personal. I'm not walking into these meetings as a political leader," he explained. "I walk in as a bridge. My job is to listen, speak carefully, and make sure Britain is remembered, not just for power, but for presence." Everyone watching could sense it. This wasn't just another royal doing his duty. When Sir David asked if he felt pressure stepping into roles once meant for prime ministers, William didn't blink. "It'd be naive to pretend there's no political shadow," he said firmly, proving the crown may not sit on his head yet, but the weight's already there. "My role isn't to play politics," William said firmly. "It's to represent stability, to remind the world that Britain's story stretches far beyond any one government. We still believe in honor, partnership, and tradition." He paused, flashing a grin. "And yes, sometimes tradition needs a Wi-Fi upgrade." When the topic turned to his February trip to Saudi Arabia, his whole expression changed. Less royal, more human. "I was stunned by Alula," he shared, speaking of the ancient Nabatean site. "It's like standing inside a history book. The silence there has real weight." His fascination was genuine, not rehearsed. He lit up again, recalling his visit to a women's football training center in Riyadh, where he surprised players with signed England jerseys. 10 years ago, that scene would have been unthinkable, William said proudly. Now it's normal. That's why Britain has to show up, not just when things are easy, but when the world's shifting. And then came the laugh everyone needed. He mentioned being invited to a camel race. "I politely declined racing the camel," he joked, straight-faced, "though I was told I'd have great form." The crowd cracked up. As the conversation deepened, viewers began to see something different. A prince not dodging his destiny, but embracing it with curiosity and conscience. Sir David leaned in, asking softly what William had learned after visiting more than 7 countries in just 15 months, including Brazil and Estonia, Monaco and the Vatican. William continued, his tone thoughtful, his answer pure statesman energy. "You learn that power isn't always loud, that warmth isn't weakness, and that the strongest thing a prince can do today is listen longer than he speaks." The camera tightened on his face. Steady, sincere. "I'll never be a politician," he said, "but I can be a person of influence. That's the burden and the blessing of this role." As the chat found its rhythm, the lighthearted tone shifted. Ben Sheard leaned forward, his voice turning serious. "You've met leaders from the Gulf, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, even Latin America in the past year. How do you balance being a symbol and a statesman? Is that tension real for you? William's gaze sharpened. Gone was the relaxed charm. This was a man aware of his weight in history. "It is a tension," he said slowly. "One I've learned to understand, not run from. You don't earn the crown by birth. You earn it by listening to how the world changes and having the guts to respond without losing yourself." Then he shared a glimpse behind the scenes. His quiet February trip to Riyadh, where he met regional ministers before heading to Oman for a roundtable on desert water innovation. No name-dropping, no bragging, just calm confidence. In that moment, his words didn't sound like those of a prince in training. They sounded like those of a monarch already stepping into his era. Prince William spoke like a man fluent in both palace tradition and global politics. "In Saudi Arabia," he said, "I didn't just see oil fields and skyscrapers. I saw young entrepreneurs, men and women telling me what they need from the West. Not lectures, but respect. Not pressure, but partnership." His voice carried quiet conviction. The screen briefly flashed to footage of William shaking hands with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman under the blazing desert sun, a subtle image of a bridge carefully rebuilt. When the show returned, Ben pointed out something everyone was noticing. "Your approach seems different. Less ribbon cutting, more real-world strategy." William chuckled. "The ribbons will always be there," he said. "But yeah, I do read a few spreadsheets before I fly out." The audience laughed, but there was something deeper behind the joke. William wasn't just showing up for photo ops. He was studying deals, learning power from the inside out. Then came the question that stopped the room cold. "Are you preparing for kingship with intention or just letting it happen?" Ben asked. William paused, the silence thick enough to feel. "Both," he said finally. "I'm not chasing the throne, but I'm building the foundation for it every day, quietly, through service. When the moment comes, I don't want to arrive as a prince who inherits. I want to arrive as a man who's already been working." His voice stayed steady, but the weight behind it was undeniable. A quiet truth that the monarchy's survival now rests as much on his character as on any royal law. Then, in a rare flash of honesty, William shared, "When I was in Nairobi last year, a child asked me why Britain still has a king. I said, to remind people that power should never be total, not even in one person's hands." The boy nodded, and I've carried that ever since. The studio fell silent. It was the kind of answer no press release could ever script. The talk shifted to the behind-the-scenes grind of royal diplomacy. William explained that every foreign tour starts with dozens of intense briefings, not just with ambassadors, but with climate experts, defense analysts, and economic strategists. He even described quiet pre-negotiation talks he joined between British trade envoys and South Korean industry leaders during his Seoul visit last autumn. "My title opens doors," he said, his tone thoughtful, "but it's my listening that keeps them open." Within hours, that line was everywhere, clipped, shared, and trending across social media. Then came the touchy subject, criticism. Ben read out a recent op-ed accusing the Prince of Wales of overreaching, of acting more like a foreign secretary than a royal. William didn't flinch. If representing Britain abroad, clearly calmly and with humility, counts as overreaching, he said firmly, then I'll keep doing it. His words hung in the air, not defensive, just resolute. The sound of a prince who's already leading from the front. "Our job isn't just ceremony, it's presence," William said with quiet conviction. "And sometimes, just showing up can shift an entire conversation." He recalled a dinner with African Union officials in Addis Ababa. No agenda, no speeches, yet his presence alone sparked movement in stalled talks over a new education partnership. It was one of the most encouraging nights of the year, he admitted, his voice carrying genuine pride. By now, the atmosphere in the studio had changed completely. Curiosity had turned into respect. William wasn't trying to prove he could be king. He was already doing the work, calmly and consistently, across borders most royals rarely touch. As the segment drew toward its close, Ben offered a thought that lingered in the air. "So, you're not just shaping how your generation sees the monarchy, you're shaping how the world sees Britain." William looked straight into the camera, steady as ever. "I hope so," he said, "because in a world full of uncertainty, a steady hand, one that listens, adapts, and still honors legacy, can be more powerful than any policy. If the first half of the Good Morning Britain special showed a future king mastering diplomacy, this part revealed his bigger plan, a world tour built not on leisure, but on learning, influence, and quiet statecraft. Sir David Attenborough, still beside him, leaned in thoughtfully and asked, "You've traveled across 5 continents in less than 16 months. What's that taught you? Brazil, Vatican City, Saudi Arabia, Estonia, Monaco, Paris," Ben listed, raising an eyebrow. "Is there one thread tying all those visits together?" William nodded, thoughtful. "Yes, a question I carry everywhere. What is Britain here to do? Not just what Britain wants, but what it means to show up, with humility, history, and a real desire to contribute." His tone was calm, but sharp, and the audience leaned in. The screen shifted to a map tracing William's official royal tours since early 2025. These weren't photo ops or fancy galas. They were tactical, purpose-driven missions, each carefully timed and deeply personal. William spoke about his March visit to Tallinn, Estonia, right as NATO tensions rose and Eastern Europe watched Russia's war unfold. His stop at a British-led NATO base carried real symbolism. "It was -8 degrees, he recalled. "I stood beside Estonian and British troops at dawn. We all drank the same burnt coffee from the same dented thermos. That morning reminded me that duty doesn't wear a crown." The line hit like truth wrapped in humility. Behind closed doors, he met with Estonia's president, Alar Karis, discussing border security and the nation's fast-growing tech infrastructure. Though no statement was released, insiders later confirmed that British cyber cooperation spiked soon after his visit. "Diplomacy, when done right," William said, "leaves no fingerprints, but it leaves the room changed." By late April, he was in Vatican City, attending the funeral of a beloved pope, standing not just as a royal, but as a bridge between faiths, symbolizing Britain's quiet, ongoing dialogue with the spiritual heart of the world. Though solemn, William's time in Vatican City became a quiet moment of unity between faiths. "Faith and tradition are cousins," he said gently. "When one mourns, the other stands beside it." No cameras, no fanfare, just a single scene of William exchanging a few private words with the new pontiff. Later, Vatican sources confirmed their talk touched on climate cooperation and the hope shared between generations. Next came Paris, a powerful stop in his growing diplomatic tour. William's presence at the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral was emotional, even historic. Invited as both a royal-in-waiting and a representative of Anglo-French solidarity, his visit carried meaning far beyond ceremony. "When I walked into the cathedral," he recalled, "it wasn't just about architecture. It was about resilience, a wound healed by craft, care, and time. I thought of Britain, of our own scars, and how we restore." His words echoed through the studio like poetry. He joined President Macron for a candlelit walk through the restored nave and later signed the cornerstone of the rebuilt structure, ensuring the world knew British artisans had helped breathe life back into the monument. William made sure their contribution was celebrated, not forgotten. But the real turning point in his royal diplomacy came soon after, in Rio de Janeiro, hosting the Earthshot Prize 2025. With the Amazon under threat and global pressure rising, his tone grew firm. "The Amazon isn't someone else's problem," he declared, a line that would headline papers worldwide, marking the moment Prince William's mission for the planet became personal. "The Amazon isn't someone else's problem. It's everyone's lifeline," William said with conviction. Partnering with local NGOs and world leaders, he presented Earthshot Awards to innovators tackling carbon capture, ocean cleanup, and urban cooling tech, a showcase of global hope in motion. His keynote that night was hailed as the most future-driven royal speech since King Charles's groundbreaking words in the 1970s. But one winner stole the moment. A 15-year-old Brazilian girl who built a drone-powered reforestation system. Backstage, she moved William to tears. "She didn't ask for a title," he recalled softly. "She asked for a charger for her invention. That's what leadership looks like today." Then came Soul, a blend of business and purpose. William joined a sustainable tech summit, chatting with young creators designing carbon-neutral products. But behind the scenes, he got down to serious work, joining UK envoys in early talks about a new post-Brexit trade corridor linking Britain with Pacific economies. "It wasn't glamorous," he joked, grinning, 12 hours of translation headsets, lukewarm tea, and deep strategy. Still, South Korean media named him the most attentive foreign guest of the year, praising his genuine curiosity about youth innovation and clean energy. What came through wasn't just a travel log, it was a mission. Every stop on William's map was planned with precision, aligned with Britain's diplomatic goals, but carried in his signature tone: quiet strength, soft power, and deep respect. Sir David Attenborough wrapped it perfectly. Wherever you go, you don't just represent Britain, you represent the idea that history must walk forward with grace. William nodded slowly, his tone soft but steady. My grandmother taught me that every handshake is remembered. My father taught me that every silence speaks. I guess now it's my turn to learn when to do which. He smiled, calm, poised, and quietly resolute. Late afternoon light spilled across the desert as the royal motorcade rolled out of Diriyah, the birthplace of Saudi Arabia. Sunlight danced off chrome fenders, sand brushed the tires, and at its center sat Prince William, not in his usual navy suit, but in a sand-colored bisht embroidered with gold thread. It was a personal gift from Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and a powerful symbol of respect. This was no ordinary diplomatic trip. The British Foreign Office had debated for months whether to send a senior royal into what the media often called a soft power paradox, a nation balancing deep tradition with bold modernization. But William, backed by King Charles, insisted on going. It's not enough to show up when it's easy, he told aides on the flight in. We must show up when it matters. Inside Al Yamama Palace, the ceremony was flawless. Marble floors gleamed, Quranic verses shimmered in gold calligraphy, and crystal chandeliers glowed above the silence. Cameras captured the formal handshake between Prince William and the Crown Prince, a single image that flashed around the world. But beyond those polished frames, what happened in private stayed sealed behind palace doors. Still, insiders hinted that what unfolded inside that golden hall would quietly redefine Britain's approach to the Gulf, a moment where diplomacy met legacy under the desert sun. Sources close to the palace later confirmed that Prince William and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman spent nearly 90 minutes in private talks, a meeting that went far beyond polite diplomacy. The discussion covered climate collaboration, expanding on William's Earthshot vision, as well as counter-terrorism coordination and cultural exchange, including a potential British Museum exhibition on pre-Islamic Arabian artifacts. But the boldest moment came when William pitched what aides later called the architectural bridge. Let's build a museum together, he proposed. One wing British, one Saudi, built by both, designed to outlast us. The Crown Prince reportedly smiled and nodded, a quiet sign of rare royal agreement. Every step of the Saudi tour was layered with symbolism and precision. At the Royal Camel Heritage Center, William was invited to name a newborn camel. His choice, Eha, subtle and respectful, a tribute that spoke volumes without overstepping tradition. Then came the unexpected, a visit to an all-women's tech incubator in Riyadh. It wasn't on the usual royal route, but William made it happen. He met young Saudi innovators creating solar cooling fabrics for desert homes, and surprised everyone by kneeling down to touch the material himself. Innovation doesn't need permission, he said with a grin. Just oxygen. Cameras caught the moment. A prince sitting cross-legged on the floor, laughing with engineers, breaking protocol in the best way possible. But the most powerful scene of the entire visit came in Alula, where heritage, humility, and the future seemed to meet under one vast desert sky. At the ancient Nabatean site of Alula, often compared to Petra, Prince William stood in the shadow of tombs carved more than 1,000 years ago, joined only by a local historian and his security team. No press, no ceremony, just silence and stone. Later, the historian revealed that William had asked a single question: "Do your sons and daughters still come here to dream?" Before leaving, he wrote a message in the visitor's log, in both Arabic and English. To stand in history is not to escape it. It is to remember that we are never truly alone. That evening, under the Riyadh skyline, William attended the Future Prosperity Summit, seated among leaders from Japan, Egypt, the EU, and the UAE. No alcohol was served, but the toasts carried real spirit. In his closing words, William spoke with quiet conviction. The future we inherit depends not on how we differ, but how we converge. with dignity, memory, and the humility to listen before we speak. The audience rose to their feet, applauding the prince who had turned diplomacy into dialogue. As his jet prepared for takeoff from King Khalid International Airport, William looked out at the golden horizon, a small brass falcon resting in his hands, a farewell gift from the Saudi royal family. Carved on its base were 4 Arabic words: "Intention builds bridges." Back in London, debate was already heating up. Had this visit marked the start of a new Anglo-Arab cultural alliance? Or was Prince William quietly shaping his own vision of monarchy, one built on understanding, courage, and connection? A prince fluent in both diplomacy and legacy. Only time would reveal how far that balance could go. But at that moment, the Prince of Wales leaned back in his seat, slipped off his cufflinks, and whispered something to his aide. Words that hinted at something deeper than duty alone. By the time his jet landed at RAF Northolt, a quiet shift had already begun. British media, often cautious in their praise, ran headlines not about scandal or breach of protocol, but about a prince who had walked into one of the world's most delicate diplomatic arenas and walked out with respect from both sides. Inside Kensington Palace, the mood was different now. Less ceremonial, more strategic. Advisors no longer called the Saudi visit a tour, but a foundation. Something changed, one senior aide admitted. Not in the world, in him. This wasn't a mission. It was an initiation. Observers quickly noticed it too. William moved with new confidence. Once known for deferring to his father and steering clear of political tone, he was now acting with the quiet independence of a man already preparing to lead. He returned from the Middle East with results. Not just headlines, but hard work. A new education and sustainability partnership between British and Saudi universities, an archaeological collaboration under the British Museum, and a confidential green tech agreement linking UK innovation hubs with Gulf research centers. It wasn't pageantry. It was progress, carefully built by a prince who had stopped waiting for the crown to tell him when to start acting like a king. None of these breakthroughs made the official press briefings. They were shared only in quiet, off-record circles, deliberately understated. He doesn't want headlines, one senior official revealed. He wants infrastructure. That line echoed something William reportedly told Prince Edward during a walk at Windsor. We don't need louder voices. We need deeper roots. At Clarence House, King Charles was said to be both proud and subtly challenged. Still, the reigning monarch, his ongoing medical treatments had led William to take on more regent-like duties, not in rivalry, but in rhythm. Palace sources described a calm coordination between father and son. The king isn't handing over a crown, one insider said. He's handing over a compass. Charles governs the past. William is building the future. It was William's idea, with Princess Anne's support, to move the upcoming Commonwealth Roundtable on climate equity from London to Nairobi, a symbolic pivot toward the global south and a nod to the shifting balance of influence. Through it all, Princess Catherine remained the quiet anchor of the royal evolution. Her recent visit to a London hospital, where she spent hours off camera with terminally ill mothers, went viral not for spectacle, but for sincerity. Staff described the couple as the anchor and the arrow, Catherine as the moral and emotional core, William as the driving force and strategist, and the public had noticed. Polls released just 3 days after his return from Riyadh showed a striking surge in approval, a clear signal that Britain was seeing not just a prince fulfilling duty, but a leader redefining what the next monarchy could look like. Polls showed a stunning 12-point surge in support for Prince William among Britons aged 18 to 34, the generation most detached from the old idea of monarchy. But what truly turned heads wasn't in the headlines, it was in the quiet moves behind them. Over the next 10 days, senior diplomats from Canada, Japan, Morocco, and even Indonesia reached out discreetly, asking for private meetings not with King Charles, but with the Prince of Wales himself. It marked a turning point in royal diplomacy. William wasn't just a bridge of continuity anymore. He was becoming a point of origin. Historians were already calling it the Riyadh turning point. He'd started carrying a slim red leather notebook, a gift from his private secretary years earlier. Only recently had he begun to use it during official meetings. Insiders revealed that its first page held just 5 handwritten words. Purpose is the quiet crown. Whether poetic instinct or subtle branding, those words captured exactly who he was becoming. a leader whose power wasn't loud but magnetic. People were moving toward him not out of obligation, but because he radiated direction and steadiness. As spring neared, the royal structure itself began to shift. Aides noted that key state briefings now went to William first, not the king. Foreign envoys were quietly requesting his attendance before others. And inside palace documents, a quiet administrative change had already begun, one that reflected a truth no one needed to announce. The future had quietly arrived, and it had William's handwriting all over it. His title had quietly shifted in tone, from HRH, the Prince of Wales, to what palace aides now referred to as acting sovereign in foreign service. It wasn't a legal change, but a cultural one, and that, as royal historian Martha Glanville wrote in The Spectator, is how real power is transferred. She added, "We're witnessing something extraordinary. A man who understands that the crown isn't made of gold or jewels, but of restraint, memory, and foresight." On the morning of February 12th, London felt unusually still, as if the city itself sensed a moment of quiet history. Inside Westminster Abbey, the air shimmered with purpose. The usual crimson drapes had been replaced with soft silver and pale green, colors chosen by William himself to represent renewal, neutrality, and the climate vision shaping his emerging reign. This wasn't a coronation. It wasn't a funeral. It was something far more symbolic, a living transfer of moral authority. Representatives from over 40 nations filled the Abbey. Education ministers from Kenya, Saudi Arabia, and Canada, sitting beside Nobel laureates, youth climate activists, and members of William's Royal Commission for Future Generations. It wasn't monarchy as spectacle, it was monarchy as strategy. "This is not theater," one UN envoy whispered to a French diplomat. "This is monarchy by design." Then, as the murmurs faded, Prince William stepped forward. No elevated throne, no gilded platform, just a simple podium at eye level with the crowd. There were no trumpets, no bows, no choreographed grandeur, only a moment of stillness. And then, his voice, steady, human, and ready to define what modern royalty would mean next. "Our task is not to command the world, but to convince it, not to preserve what was, but to steward what must be." With those words, Prince William launched the Global Youth Stewardship Compact, a multi-billion-pound initiative linking youth-led environmental projects across the Commonwealth. Funded by a coalition of British and global partners, it drew instant support from Australia, India, and Gulf states even before he spoke. But William's genius wasn't the money, it was the message. He didn't put the crown at the center, he placed children there, the next stewards of the planet. Princess Catherine then took the stage, introducing Tomorrow Belongs to Someone, a short film made by children from Bangladesh, Brazil, and Botswana. When she whispered, "Let them be heard," the Abbey rose to its feet in absolute silence. 2 empty chairs stood at the front, one for those absent, one for those yet to lead. They said everything about legacy without a single word. As the event ended, the world saw a prince turning duty into direction, a monarch in motion. If you believe leadership should build, not boast, like, comment, share, and subscribe for more royal insights from Palace Insider.